Hello Internet. Hi there. I just wanted to make a video, a purely opinionated piece or opinion piece about rangefinder cameras and whether or not you should go for a Leica rangefinder. If you've searched around and you've hit this video and you're watching it, I can only assume that you're interested in buying a rangefinder such as a Leica, and you're wondering if they're worth the money. I'm going to say right off the bat that I think they are worth the money, and I'm going to just tell you a little bit about my process of how I got there. So I was interested in rangefinders a few years ago, and before I bought a Leica, I bought the cheaper options that you read about when you go online and go down the rabbit hole of rangefinder cameras online, such as Camera Quest and places like that, which are great places for information, but there's so much information. So I went and I bought, before I got this lovely Leica, I bought the Canon G3 QL blah blah blah, and it was fun for a while, but it never really did it for me because there's problems with the battery, there's problems with the meter, and it's kind of just a bit wobbly, and it's okay. It's kind of a fun camera, something you want to see, you can use to see if you like the rangefinder style of shooting, but that's about it. It didn't really do it for me. And I dropped it as well, which doesn't help. The other camera that my wife bought me, which is awesome, and I do love kind of getting out and playing with it now and again, is another cheap rangefinder option, the Kiev. And this lens on here is one of the best lenses that's apparently come out of the Soviet Union, apparently. The Helios 103. Those letters there say Helios in Russian. And it's a 53mm, and it's kind of a style of like a Contax style. But again, this camera is more of a novelty than anything else. It's kind of, the way it works is a bit funky. As you can see, this is the light meter on top. It's like it was built by Dr. Frankenstein or something. And it does actually technically work because the needle moves, but it's not accurate at all. You couldn't possibly shoot with it. And the whole camera kind of smells like grease or something, you know? It's just kind of, it seems like it's out of a tool shop. I don't know. It's fun, and I really enjoy it, using it, you know, once in a while. Like I said, my wife bought it as a gift, but again, it didn't satisfy me. I didn't fall in love with it. Now we come to the Leica M6, the famous Leica M6. And it's awesome, it's beautiful. It's just the most gorgeous thing. And everything works really well. The metering is really good. I'm finding that I'm just getting such accurate metering when I meter on a small patch of sort of a mid-tone when I'm out in the field, and use that as my guide. And then I just, you know, everything's completely manual. And I go by that mid-tone and I get really good exposures from shadow detail. Faces are good right through to highlights and things like that. Focusing is really accurate. I've really put it through its paces by focusing wide open with this lens at 1.4 and getting as close as I can, and it works perfectly. And of course the shutter is very quiet. I won't fire it right now because there's film in it, but I'm sure you've seen that online before on YouTube. There's people showing you how quiet they are, and it's just a nice, reliable camera, something I want to use, something I've fallen in love with. And it might not improve my photography as such, but me wanting to use it, me grabbing the camera when I'm on my way out with just grab my camera and just taking it, just means I'm enjoying the process, and therefore I'm more likely to shoot with it and get shots and just enjoy the whole process. So I think just the enjoyment factor is going to improve my photography to some degree. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it won't, but enjoying photography at this point for me, I'm a hobbyist, I'm not a professional. That's what it's all about. Now, I did pay a reasonable amount for this camera, way more than for the other cameras you've seen, but for me it's worth it. And what I would recommend is try a rangefinder, try one of the cheap ones and see if you like it. It might not be for you, you might be an SLR person. And if you like the rangefinder way of doing things and you like a fully manual camera, then maybe start saving for your M6 or M5 or whatever camera you want. For me, I wouldn't get an M4 or an M2 or something like that, or an M3, even though they're awesome cameras. I'd be put off by the fact that they don't have a meter. Like I said, the metering in this camera works really well for me, and I find it to be very reliable and easy to use. Not having a meter and carrying a separate meter or doing the Sunny 16 thing, I've done that with other cameras. You know, my TLR doesn't have a meter, so I do the Sunny 16 and I've had good results. But the reason why I want to Leica M6 is because I can use it under low light. And doing the Sunny 16 under low light or indoors is actually a lot more tricky than doing it outside on a, you know, in just normal daylight. So what I would recommend is, once you've realized that you want to have a rangefinder by shooting some kind of rangefinder, then, you know, work out whether you're into a fully manual camera or not. You can also go for the M7, which has auto exposure, aperture priority auto exposure, so there's an option, but again, they're more expensive. So what I would recommend is to buy a Leica. Just save up for it, do some overtime, sell some crap that you don't need, and get the real thing. You probably won't be satisfied with the snapshot cameras that I showed earlier, and neither was I. So once you've found an M6 body or an M7 body or whatever camera you decide to get, you can actually get cheaper options on lenses to start you off. So I bought, my first lens was I can't even get it out of the packet. Was this baby, the Industar, and it was 53 millimeters. I was very, very, very surprised at the quality of the images. It's a 2.8, and I tried it open, and maybe a little softer wide open, but stop down, a very good lens. 53 millimeters you can use with the normal 50mm frame line on, say, an M6, and it works just fine. I got a late production model, and this one's really actually quite nice and in really good condition. It was $40. So I'd recommend that as a starting point. Because once you spent like $1,000 or $1,500 on an M6 or something, you want some cheap options to keep, you know, just to keep you going and keep you shooting. So there is a recommendation from me. The current lens I use all the time is the Voigtlander 35 1.4, and I think it's excellent. I've had great results with this. It's not optically quite as good as the summilux, but why would it be? It costs about 10% of the price. But it's totally acceptable. And keep in mind that if you're shooting at 1.4, whether you're in like a smoky nightclub with a band or you're taking, you know, portrait shots outside, the corners are probably going to be not sharp anyway. So if you're shooting wide open, the corners are generally either in the shadows or unfocused anyway. And if you're doing something like architecture or something like that, or landscape, you're not going to be shooting wide open anyway. So for me, I get great results with this lens, and any slight shortcomings it may have, I can work around, and it's not a big deal for me. The next lens that I bought that was really cheap, about $100, just over $100, is this really old 1959 elmarit 2.8 90mm lens. So this is now my portrait lens. And again, it's an old Leica lens. This is in pretty good condition. There's a couple of scratches here and there, but on the elements, but nothing that you can really notice when you see the prints. So again, that's a nice cheap option. I would totally recommend it. And it's a Leica lens, and it's an M mount, so you don't even need an adapter. And then the other one that I bought, which is quite rare, is the Voigtlander, and it's the 50mm f2 anniversary. It's the 250th anniversary, and I think they only made about 1,700 of these lenses, so they're quite rare. And one review in one of the magazines put it as being as sharp as the Leica lens that they were testing it with. So probably a summicron. And Popular Photography from like 2006, I think it was, said it's as good as a Leica lens. And I've shot with it and I couldn't see anything that was even slightly bad about this lens. Everything was sharp and good and saturated. And the bokeh is perfectly round because it has so many blades. I think it has 10 blades. So anyway, if you can find one of these, which might be difficult, it's the Heliar Classic 50mm f2 from Voigtlander. I would recommend it. It's a brilliant lens. So, there we have it. My opinion on the Leica. You can play around with the cheaper options, but I can tell you from my experience, you probably won't be satisfied. You can look at other things like, say, a Zeiss rangefinder, but they're just as expensive as the Leicas and they're very rare. You won't find them on Craigslist very easily or something like that. The other options that I've heard are quite good are the Voigtlanders. And they're the R2, the R3A, the R4, that kind of thing. And I've heard they're quite good. And they're quite a bit cheaper than a Leica. But I've never shot one, so I can't really say. So they're worth looking at. And also you can buy lenses for that and then shoot that. And if you like it, maybe trade up the body to a Leica body or trade up the lenses to Leica lenses. And you can sort of do it piggyback style like that. Is it piggyback? Piggyback rides, like when you, anyway, you get it. So that's my opinion of the M6. Just go out and buy one. Work overtime if you have to. It's well worth it. It's an awesome camera. I love it and I love shooting with it. And the cheap options never did it for me. So there you go. Thank you.